with your hand resting in mine. I feel a power so divine.
Wake up, but the one good thing about, I mean, I wax, but one good thing about getting older is that your facial hair goes white, so you're not trying to cover up a blue beard.
So what are you putting on now, Doug? Oh, by the way, hello everybody, we're talking to Doug Lucas here. Doug Lucas is possibly the oldest working drag queen in Melbourne, would you say?
Oh no, there's Cherry.
Oh yes, of course,
Amy,
Cherry, right.
There's Sharon.
Oh, it's good to know that you're not the oldest, but you are possibly the most well-known and you're definitely legend status.
Oh, nationally, yes.
How do you feel about being a legend?
Well, I don't think of myself that way. I just think I've been fortunate enough to do what I like. It's been a great life. I mean, I've travelled all around Australia. The only places I haven't done shows are Northern Territory and Queensland, but I mean Sydney, Canberra, Tasmania. Been invited over to Perth a couple of times, even once to headline the opening of Dual Control. Worked the Red Line there, used to work in Adelaide 2 or 3 days a week. For quite a while, 2 or 3 nights a week actually.
You've done a lot.
And at that stage I'd worked just about every club and bar in Melbourne, and in '96 I got the Lifetime Achievement Award, so yeah, which was really nice. It's nice to be acknowledged for what you've done. Not that I go around with attitudes saying, look, I'm a star, I expect this. As I go to people, I'm not a demanding diva.
I've known you for many years and I can attest to that. You're very down to earth.
But there's certain things that are non-negotiable, but that's just that anybody would get as a performer, but I don't sort of play that card trick.
So you're here now preparing for a show called Broadside, which is at DT's, obviously.
Yeah.
So how did it get the name Broadside? What's Broadside?
Broadside, how it all started originally, I came here for Tootsie's wake. A friend of mine was holding it. A couple of the older queens got up to do a couple of numbers as a tribute to Toots. And I was talking to Steve, who was a friend of Tootsie's that had organised the thing. And my mind's been ticking over for a while that there's really nowhere for us older crowd to go to. Like there's no Queen's birthday picnics, there's no fantasy balls. We're at that stage of our life where we seem to catch up at funerals, and I've gone, no, we're not dead, we're still alive, we're still switched on. We need a reason to go out. And so I decided on a Sunday afternoon, because I thought, well, we're going out at night time to bars. It's like going out for a Sunday afternoon drive or going to the markets or whatever else. It's just an outing, finishes early. Everybody gets a chance to catch up. Like I said, don't wait till your friends die to go to the funeral, tell people how you feel about them. Do it now.
So true.
Get out there. And it's all a bit of calmness and a bit of fun. And the name I came up with was sort of a play on words, because I was trying to think what we were going to call it, and then I thought, Broads, you know, and then North Side. So it was a combination of the Broads on North Side, or a simplification.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I came up with the name Broadside.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so, but I mean, if I was to take it the show anywhere else, it would still be Broadside, because that's the name of the show. But that's what it was, an amalgamation of Broads on North Side.
And who's in Broadside? Who are your normal castmates?
It's my granddaughter, it's Miss Judy Leblanc.
Yes, I've seen a photo of her. I haven't seen her perform.
Fabulous, lovely person, yeah. So kind.
She's not on today? She's having a day off?
No, she'd asked for this day off a couple of months ago. And and Sharon Starr.
That's right.
So that's the core of the show, and then I have 1 to 2 guest spots depending on how big the night is. You know, like the budget allows for 1 guest. Sometimes I'll pay for the 2nd guest, because with me I'm not doing it for the money, I'm just doing it to get together. And I enjoyed catching up with my friends. You know, that was part of the motivation, and I thought there must be other people out there that felt exactly the same way I did, and fortunately that's been proved right. You know, there is
absolutely.
And because a lot of the people have known me for years, so they sort of knew in a way what to expect.
What are you doing now, Doug? You're putting your face on, obviously. Are there any special techniques that we're missing out on? Tell us the tricks.
Look, I just tell everybody I have everything laid out in my makeup tray. I just pick it up and I go, and it just falls into place.
You know, that's what Candy did.
What?
God bless her soul. That's what Candy used to do. That she said when I interviewed her, she said the same thing.
Well, she copied that off me.
She probably did.
She did. She did. Oh, look. Candy. Yeah, lovely Candy. What can you do? I used to love it when I'd work in Lucy's show and Barbara and Candy and I would guest in it because we're 3-part scenes and you get 3-part scenes together and it's like nick, 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 nick. And we come out with these lines and people probably think we're bitches but here's some of the things we say. But it's all just a play on word, but we know exactly where the other person's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Just so the viewers know, this is the day before Candy's memorial and we're still very sad about her. So.
Yeah, well, we're doing a couple of tribute numbers to Candy in the show.
Oh, lovely. I'm sure that'll be much appreciated because she's touched all of us.
Well, it's funny because when I looked at the numbers of her trips, with numbers that I've done, you know, stock standards, that's how we all start. I mean, the number that I'm doing tonight, I haven't done for over 45 years. When I worked out it was 45 years, that was a bit of a shock because
wow.
time just flies. But I hadn't done it since days at Annabelle's Blades, and that was prior to Pokies, and Pokies started in 77, so I figured 76, 75. But it used to be a routine comedy number that was always done at Les Girls.
Look forward to
by
it.
Ruth Wallace. Ruth Wallace is a singer from the 60s that used to sort of sing songs that were ambiguous, you know.
So hang on, I sort of tuned in. I've known you since Pokies around about 84. So obviously I came in halfway or towards the end of Pokies.
Yeah, well, it started in 77, late 77.
So, wow, there's a lot before that. And then you were dragging way before then, weren't you?
Yeah, well...
Were you a 60s drag queen?
No, I turned 10 in 1960.
Oh, did you?
I started...
You never know.
Early 70s I started doing shows.
So, can you name some names? I'm not aware of a lot of this history.
Like names of what, venues?
Yeah, places you worked. Crystal Teas, I heard you mention.
Oh, Crystal Teas was a straight club. That was a strip club. That was in the 80s onwards. I used to compare the male strip shows.
Okay.
And sort of do that all over most of southern Australia. You know, from Canberra through to Tassie, across to...
Adelaide.
To Murray Bridge. No, I did do strip shows in Adelaide.
So when you say you did strip shows, you weren't stripping.
Oh, hardly.
You were like comparing the strippers.
No. Just freeze that for a moment. I'm just trying to think of the line I used to use. Yeah, I'm the comic, not the comic strip.
Ah, lovely.
Yes.
So, because drag's obviously changed since the 70s. In those days, it was like you'd get hired as what, a drag queen to compare, or?
Yes, exactly. And the makeup in those days was very simple. It was like a tan base, blue or green eyeshadow, which you used to be able to get on an applicator on a stick.
Wow.
And very pencil thin eyebrows. It's what I used to call the California girl look.
Okay.
That was the look, and long fingernails. You know, fingernails are really
And I
important.
noticed you still got your long fingernails. So,
Look, if I break a nail, I've got to put a tip on because otherwise I feel like I'm missing a
so
joint.
they're your
or
real
whatever.
nails.
Yeah, most. Occasionally they break, and then I just.
Or
I originally just used to put the tips on to get the clarifications in the colour, so I wouldn't have to paint them.
The sisters would be very envious because if you're not wearing nails, you're not a sister. Nova always
No,
says.
well, it's just. I just tell people it's because I like having a good scratch, and it just makes me able to reach the other distances. Or I'll go up to somebody, they'll do what's that, and I'll just rake my nails up and down their back or their head, and I'll go, oh, yeah, gotcha.
Because that does actually feel quite nice when people do it, as long as it's not an aggressive scratch.
Oh, no. No, unfortunately, I'm very old school when it comes to if somebody annoys me, scratching isn't going to do it. A decent punch will let that aggro out. Because, I mean, I'm so used to throwing lines away and I do it for fun and it's all part of the act, it's not satisfying to sort of throw a line at somebody. It's too easy. If I'm really angry and I want to get that tension out, I'm more likely to just bang, grab them by the throat and have them up against the wall and give them the news. But very, very frequently does that happen. So don't worry, I'm normally quite harmless.
So I'm quite sure that you're often asked about pokies, as I know that I've heard many people ask you about pokies before, and it's probably your claim to fame most well known for being one of the owners of pokies, which was at the Prince of Wales for from 1977
7
to
until 92.
92.
14 and a half years.
I can speak to my experience of going and watching you and the Glamazon Barbie dolls that were on stage and the dancing men and the production numbers and the big feather headdresses, and it was just magical.
Well, I ended up with 5 male dancers, 5 showgirls. That was on an average. We get 1,000 people every Sunday night. It was 1 night a week venue. But when pokies first started, drag was a bit of a novelty. But drag queens weren't really, or cross-dressers, I suppose.
So like
drags.
lay girls type.
No, just people that would dress up. People used, or people that were probably trans. So because I mean everything's come out in the open a lot more, and people have got more knowledge.
Sure.
But it was sort of like you don't really belong in our scene. If that's what that's what straight people are interested in. That's it. Whereas pokies had changed everything around. That the girls in the show actually became the stars. Like I said,
And they were too.
Yeah, like when I did the show You Can't Ask That on the ABC, I said, like, because we have our own scene, we sort of created our own social calendars, our own stars, our own sort of dialogue. And that's how it was. And divas, we were like the divas of the scene,
You were. And you were the centre one. You were the one that was like the comic madam, like a madam, and with all the 4 girls being tall, slim, and like Barbie dolls.
Well, that was the contrast.
Yeah.
I was the man drag.
Yeah.
It
worked really well.
You don't understand. And then all these, and to do the comedy. Well, I always think that you should have a bit of comedy. I think people should laugh. They should get those happy endorphins, flowing through
Light
their body.
and shade, it makes it less boring.
And in those days, you could say what you like because all that political correctness bullshit wasn't around.
True.
And people realised it was just a joke and it was a play on words instead of dissecting it word by word by word and people being offended. Well, if they're offended, they can go jump. I'm over it. I just think it is just so ridiculous. Like I said, the important thing is to go and have a laugh. I used to warn people in the early days, if you're easily offended, best you leave now, but I didn't say it quite as nicely as that. I'd say, well, if you don't like it, you can...
So you had a famous lesbian partner, Jan Hillier. So how was that dynamic between the two of you?
Well, I used to go that she was the king of Melbourne and I was the queen of Melbourne. And I used to think it was funny because the lady partner wore pants and the male partner wore a dress. So there was a comment. But no, Jan had approached me and she said, look, with your following and my following. And Jan hadn't been doing anything for a while. And I was sort of like, I had quite a following behind me at that stage. So, I mean, it was mutually advantageous. But, I mean, pokies was only ever designed to be a quiet thing at the end of the weekend. And
it turned out to be a Sunday night event.
A life of its own. And I mean, we learned as we went along,
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking you about this, because I know that there's a lot of young queens that hear about pokies and they just don't understand what it was. The scene was a lot different then, and that's because of the work that you did. And thank you for that. Yeah. They don't realise what came before them.
And also back in those days, there was a certain thing of safety in numbers. That's why gay bars...
It certainly was.
So basically, you didn't have to worry about some bloody drop kick,
How many people fit in that room? How big was the crowd there? Was it like 1,000 people?
1,000 every Sunday, but one Queen's birthday weekend we had 1,632.
It was a really Sunday night fabulous event.
Yeah, New Year's Eve, Poki's birthday and Queen's birthday weekend were the 3 busiest nights.
And a lot of your cast members are friends of mine on Facebook because I've stayed friends with them. I'd like to give them a mention. How about Deborah Legay? Isn't she fabulous?
Deborah's brilliant. Ex-Slay Girls.
Amanda
Lindsley.
Yes.
Amanda.
I can't remember her stage name. Amanda
Lee.
Amanda Lee, that's right.
Yeah, Amanda's like my sister.
Terry
my little
Tinsel.
sister.
Oh.
Terry's amazing. Ex-Slay Girls.
Love Terry.
I'd originally got Terry. Terry'd been with us since opening night. She'd left a couple of times, but had all these amazing ideas. She used to do these incredible shows. And in the early days, the show was myself, Terry, Wanda Jackson, and 2 male dancers, Ross Barnett and Greg Carroll, Chelsea,
Michelle Tozer.
No, Michelle came in a little bit later.
Yeah.
Michelle was working as a waitress at Bernhardt's Coffee Lounge, which is
Okay.
just around the corner from where 397 was in Swanson Street. And for you babies out there, that was opposite the RMIT,
Yes.
up the top end of Swanson Street.
397.
Yeah, because in those days, coffee lounges were the go for after hours. Because licensing laws pubs were shut on Sundays. They'd have to close at 6.
Just
or
love
if you had
397.
it'd be 10 o'clock. Now, like in Pakistan, we used to go from 6 till 10.
Yeah.
And then over the years, when I opened it up, it used to be 6 till 12, then we made it 7 till 12 because that first hour was like a graveyard shift.
Now, the production numbers, like with such a big cast and such a big stage, it was like theatre. Whereas drag these days is like a spot number, and if you're lucky, you might get a trio like the Sisters or.
Well, they were full-on reviews, they were full-on themed shows. You know, everything from like a tits and feathers show to a science fiction show, like
lighting and choreography and.
Yeah, just amazing, and it gave a lot of other people the opportunity to use their skills. You know, whether it was McBean doing the wigs, and I mean, he's become a legend. You know, all the drags go to Peter McBean to get the wigs done.
Yes, I've been there with Candy.
Laurie Lane and people like that used to do the sets, you know. We had a follow spotlight, we had a lighting panel. It was done like a proper show, which is what it was. Always on time, sorry. Whenever we'd have a new show, it might be 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
But never drag time. If the show was announced at 8:30, that's when it was on.
You had to be closed by a certain time because of liquor laws, didn't you, at that time?
Yeah, originally 10 o'clock.
Well,
Seems ridiculous now, but that's how it was.
it's how I remember you. It's how I met you. And I guess somewhere along the way we spoke to each other. I can't quite remember how we met. It's probably in a nightclub somewhere, the Peel or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know whether it was before or after you were doing Bitchin' Kitchen for... You know.
That was around the turn of the century. I was doing that 2001.
Oh, well, I mentioned before.
Yeah, we did.
You're every friend.